I think that we teach about much of everything in education is fundamentally wrong. And I want to talk about this. We teach people about performance, and we teach people that there is generally a right solution, whatever that particular right solution is, and that if we simply do the work, we will get to that right solution. That it's very easy to identify that usually it's, if you're in the mathematical sort of science based stuff, that there is one true answer, that there is an artifact that exists in this world. And then if you're in the more, you know uh, more on the humanity side, maybe you're definitely more on the social side that you're thinking about individuals and things like that, that you assume that there's qualitatively a better answer than there's always something that's slightly better. And I'm going to propose that all of those are false narratives, that there's simply not a better alternative that exists. There's different alternatives. There's things that resonate a little better than another one, but they're different. It doesn't mean that one of them is qualitatively or one of them is false compared to something else. It means that there's likely some partial truth to that. And that goes with almost all existing sort of theories and how it works, how everything works, right? Like the flat world, the sort of flat world folks that believe that the world is flat. Well, that in their world, in their sort of near world, the world is kind of flat. We actually do make those assumptions when you think about physics problems, for example, that you just assume a flat surface, right? And that flat surface going or something going down a ramp, yeah, in that immediate vicinity, it is flat, but that is a tangent around going around what's called a tangent, going around the world, right? Like something that is sort of shooting off. It doesn't necessarily mean that the whole thing is flat, but it means that in that sort of vicinity, it can behave like it's kind of flat. Um, all of the sort of unusual propositions that existed with the COVID and sort of all of the sort of strange science that behaved that was behind it and the sort of pseudoscience. Um, you know, to them, to that group of people, that was a sort of stable understanding that that was actually going on. But, I want to sort of take a step back and suggest that there's likely nothing that we can say to convince groups of people that something is better than something else. So that's where, understanding where the world actually is sort of a challenging thing, and what we're thinking about it. We have sort of a stable kind of corpus of how the world actually works, but it's very much a social process. Nobody quite understands what is the true world, what is the true answer to something. And now, as a student, I can't necessarily sort of tell you that this is a. I can identify, right? So first of all, we can identify what's a better answer. Often in the science, it's really easy to identify what's a better answer. But in the sort of practical world, when you get out and you do things, this is where the disconnect comes from, and people feel really uneasy about it, and they say sort of it doesn't match up. That's because the world is kind of really fuzzy. The world actually has all of these weird. There's not really a demarcation that you'd sort of see in this sort of academic university understanding, that there's these sort of hard boundaries of where there is a good answer and not a good answer that explains this thing or that thing. It's a big mess, right? It's a big complex system. It's not even a complex system because I'm putting sort of value judgments on what this thing actually looks like and how it sort of behaves. It's just a big mess. right? And it's all interacting in many different ways, and we have unbelievable number, infinite number of systems that are all working together in different ways, right? So the how what's going on, you think about a mud puddle, right? It seems like a really simple system. Well, what's happening on the moon is affecting what's happening in the mud puddle, right? You're going to get small tidal effects that happen in that mud puddle, right? But you're not going to see it. It's not going to be sort of present to the naked eye. um, there's going to be all sorts of organisms that's in it, all bacteria. There's all sorts of really interesting things that are in there. Plus, sediment and layers of sediment, but also maybe some chemicals that are happening that are doing chemical reactions. There's maybe people walking around it and how they're behaving with walking around it. Like there's all these subsystems and that are interacting. There's all these sort of ways that it's just a giant mess. And I think, if we were to think about this, right, and we were to try to understand this, it would be overwhelming, right, to sort of explain what is going on with this one little baby mud puddle. Um, and the only thing that I know in order to sort of change, press against the world, given that there's a super complicated system, now that's just a mud puddle. Right now, talk about how do you explain how a financial market works, or a company works, or how do you grow a company, or um, what's it mean to manage an organization? Like all these kind of things, like tons of stuff. What does it mean to be an academic? What does it mean to do research? Like lots of sort of different things that are extremely complicated that don't necessarily make sense when you're in it. There's not a right answer ever, right? Like, does what Walmart does, are they ever going to get like, oh, this is the right answer? Not necessarily. That is really difficult to come up with that. You could do experiments to sort of identify that, but most people don't have the time to actually do any of that kind of stuff. That there is something that's better, and then also it's largely fading. People that do, um, Google ads and things like that realize that, man, those ads that are successful that you A/B tested, they're only successful for a short period, and people get tired of them, and then they're not successful, right? So everything is kind of a big moving mess that there's not really ever a right answer. So what is it that I can suggest? The only action that I know that works is just gumption, just getting up, doing the same thing every day, and just trying. Right? You try to come up with that right answer. You try to sort of whittle away at something. You try to sort of better explain something. You try to sort of put things together, and you just keep doing that day in and day out, day in and day out. And none of that knowledge that you learned about what is the sort of truth about the world sort of really matters. I mean, what happens, how I understand how a polynomial functions. Yeah, it's kind of a nice thing for me to understand that in mathematics and tell me I know a fair bit about that. But man, does it help me understand how to interact with my kids anymore? Does it help me how to, brush my teeth more efficiently? Not necessarily, not in the day to day. And that's where people get detached from it. They think, well, that's dumb, right? At the very most, I could say that the way that I brush my teeth is a sinusoidal function. But even then, that seems really dumb and stupid to talk about those kind of things in that sort of sense, right? It's not practical. But what we can do is just get up and better explain the world a little bit. So me calling brushing my teeth a sinusoidal function allows people to understand the world slightly better. And maybe somebody that had gumption would get up and figure out a better way to brush teeth, right? And because of the way that that function actually works. And it's a lot of that kind of stuff. But the thing that it depends on is that gumption of you getting up and you trying and you getting going. I am blown away by the number of people that try something and just give up and never sort of pursue that thing again. Right? I remember hearing these economists talk about you should never pursue something past the sort of marginal returns. Yeah, if you knew what those marginal returns were, right? We don't know what those things are. It doesn't make sense to even assume that in this world. Like, there's nothing that has these sort of nice functional forms that economists love to talk about. It's a big mess. And the only way that we could figure this out, literally the only way we could figure it out, is just keep going. One more day, one more step, one little thing. And that seems like a waste. Yes, it is. Absolutely. It's a total waste. But how else do you figure it out without doing that? And that's it. So I wish we could teach, and coming around to where I began, I wish we could teach education about just simply getting up and trying day in, day out. That's it, over and over and over again. Somehow we need to do a better job. That is the key, is getting up and trying and getting your just pursuing things for the sake of pursuing it for your own pleasure, because often that doesn't exist in other domains. That the only way you can pursue something is simply for that long to do something that you just are like, yeah, I'm going to do this. It's for pleasure. It's because that you think that there's something that is important for you. And that's it. There's really no sort of secret answer to that, right? And the only way that you can solve this big, massive mess and actually make an impact in this mess that we call the world is just keep trying day in and day out. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.